Imagine putting all of your effort into the sport of volleyball so you can stay on the court the longest. You train for hours and hours so you will be able to overcome anything you face in a match. And you start down the path to reach your goal, making it all the way to nationals where you can showcase your talents on the biggest stage. Everything seems to be going well as your team cruises through the first round of the tournament, until in the second round you run into a powerhouse school that has the skill to crush you. And this fun game of volleyball suddenly turns into a nightmare, where everything you have done up until this point doesn't seem to matter because you're going up against a better team. This is the feeling at the start of the Karasuno versus Inarizaki match in the 4th season of Haikyuu, a match that at times gives off true horror vibes. And today I want to explore how this match makes volleyball become a frightening affair, and then how it evolves out of that horror into my favorite match of the anime so far. Before we continue with the video, make sure to sub if you haven't already, and check out my Patreon in the link down below. From the very first serve, we see just how terrifying of an opponent Inarizaki is, with the best defenders on Karasuno not even being able to move to get the receive from Atsuma, and Atsuma himself being more concerned with the people in the crowd than the team he is actually facing. This becomes the thesis for the match. How will Karasuno be able to overcome the fear they feel when they face Inarizaki? I would argue that this match captures the intensity and terror of Uchijima in the Shiratorizawa match, but applies it to the entire team for Inarizaki. I think one of the best ways this is accomplished is through the production. Since the shift in animation by Production IG has been a big talking point as of late, I want to give some of my brief thoughts overall to their adaptation. In my opinion, the 4th season of Haikyuu has some of the best production moments in the entire series, but it also has some of the worst production moments in the series. With the previous 3 seasons, I don't think it quite reached the heights that Season 4 was able to get, but it also didn't fumble as many moments in the biggest matches. But if I'm being honest, I also don't think that the few moments here and there of low animation quality takes away from the match. But I do think some of the better aspects of the production elevate it in many ways. Of course, many of the lower production moments were also due to the impact from the pandemic, and so I won't really read too much into the consistencies for this season. The soundtrack is the first aspect that comes to mind, as it is really able to build up the terror of Inarizaki. The soundtrack feels like anything but something you would find in a show about volleyball. It has horror vibes all over it, and it matches the real terror of the Mia twins, and especially Atsuma's serve at the start. It gets even better when they use their freak quick for the first time, and the horror synth is reminiscent of something you would hear in Attack on Titan, and not a volleyball show. I have to give Production IG a ton of credit here, because the soundtrack for this match is the best in any season. The theme for Inarizaki perfectly captures the intense and yet laid-back nature of their roster. On one hand, this is the toughest opponent Karasuno has gone up against in the series, but on the other hand, their best player is basically a 5-year-old when he's on the court, and flips between ultra-intense and very laid-back. This inherent duality and contradiction in how Inarizaki functions is not an easy thing to capture, and yet their theme does it perfectly. This team seems scary on the outset, but as the match goes on, you see that their players are just enjoying playing the game. The Mia twins specifically bounce off of each other in hilarious fashion at multiple points throughout the match. This duality is portrayed immediately through the soundtrack for their team. The soundtrack also helps lift some moments where the animation may falter slightly. With the production and the setup of Inarizaki, all of a sudden Karasuno is put into a hole. The game of volleyball is scary and not really a fun thing anymore, and that feeling creeps up at multiple points throughout the match. but it is always kept at bay because of Hinata. When the going gets tough and the players on Karasuno need to overcome the fear of the other team, Hinata shows up every single time and shows his teammates that they're still just playing volleyball, a game that they all love, which allows for one of the best parts of the match to flourish. One of the most satisfying parts of this match, and really all of Nationals, is just how well Karasuno is playing. We are far removed from the days where the team is losing every match, and now we are seeing them play at the height of their powers and going up against a team that is doing the same. Once they are able to overcome the initial terror, we see them play some really great volleyball. And then the fear is transferred to the other side of the court, where Inarizaki must fear the monsters of Karasuno, and that back and forth ensues throughout the entirety of the match. Quickly when the match starts, we see why Inarizaki is one of the favorites to win the tournament, through the amazing play of the Miya twins. Atsuma's serve starts to feel like a combination of Oikawa and Ushijima with a floater added in. But Atsuma is far more intense than those two, literally calling two of his fans in the crowd squealing pigs. Nationals is scary is said a lot throughout the season, and this moment embodies that saying the best. Atsuma isn't just good at serving, but his setting, of course, is on the same level as calm Kageyama. And looking at Inarizaki as a team, they introduce a slew of my favorite characters in the entire series. The Miya twins, Oran, and of course their incredible captain, Kita. My favorite of the bunch being Miya Atsuma, but they all have really important roles in the story. Atsuma is a great foil to Kageyama, and where Kageyama is mentally in the story. Like I said earlier, it is already satisfying watching Karasuno play at a high level, and Kageyama is the best of the bunch. Not only is he the best player on Karasuno from a physical standpoint, but he is also in the best place mentally we've seen so far in the series. Kageyama has been on a journey since the beginning to find his style as a setter. He wanted to do everything himself, then he started to play like Oikawa and give himself up to his spikers. Now he has found himself in the middle of both of those styles, and it has unlocked his fantastic play. Even though Atsuma and Kageyama are both elite setters, they still have slightly different playing styles, and we see that in this match. Atsuma is willing to try out new and wild things in the game because he trusts his skill and the skill of the people around him to make sure it works. This happens multiple times in the match, and most obviously when he tries the freak quick. When Atsuma sets the ball, he basically says, "Here it is, come get it and show me you're good enough." Kageyama, on the other hand, is far more understanding of his spiker's conditions. Kageyama tells Tanaka that they need his spikes, and he makes sure that Suki is giving it his all when he jumps up. He won't let them bow down from a situation, but in the end he understands that his spikers are still the one who makes the point. These two players are the definition of fearless in a match that focuses so heavily on fear. They are excited by the challenge and fully trust in themselves and others around them. I love the little chess matches between Kageyama and Atsuma, but those little battles are everywhere in this match. This is a subtle shift, but one that I think is noteworthy. Take the Shiratorizawa match, for example. We take time to focus on each matchup, but they all come one at a time. We take an episode to explore Tendo versus Suki and Hinata, then another with Ushijima and Nishinoya. All of these little matches are there throughout the 5 sets, but in the Inarizaki match, we flow between different matches throughout each episode. It may be the middle blocker slowly getting manipulated by Suki while he is paying more attention to Kageyama as a blocker, or the stability of Oran slowly being worn down, and the same on the other side for Tanaka and Noya. I think you can even argue that Inarizaki is the real payoff for all the training we see in the first handful of seasons that leads them to Nationals. Of course, the stakes of the Shiratorizawa match were arguably greater, but the team was still putting all of the pieces together. The Inarizaki match paves the way for matches to come by showing just how good of a team Karasuno really is. It wasn't just a fluke that they beat Shiratorizawa. Karasuno can compete with anyone. And in the shifting battles of the match, a few characters rise above the rest. Tanaka is the first one that stands out to me. Throughout the series, it has always been known and unsaid that Tanaka is the weakest starter on the team, especially by the end of Season 2. He is good at everything, but not great at any one thing, which would make him often almost fade out of matches if it wasn't for his personality. But now that he is facing a team as good and calculated as Inarizaki, they will do everything they can to crush him. Tanaka is then put up against the wall, and we get to explore the player on the team who is good, but not great. In maybe one of the most relatable moments of the series, we learn that Tanaka feels like he is climbing a mountain, but with no end in sight. And even if he were to make it to the top, it wouldn't come close to the height that the other monsters on the team have reached. But that fear of just being average isn't enough to stop him, and he is able to pull out all of his potential and win the first set for Karasuno. In this match, Tanaka, who is typically fearless, has to overcome the fear of being average. Another player who has never been scared up until this point is Nishinoya, and the jump float from Atsuma forces him to face his fear. Noya has always been the support for the spikers on Karasuno, but now that he is facing a challenge that slows him down, it is his teammates that are able to lift him up. Just like Tanaka, Nishinoya is able to overcome the fear of facing an elite team. This brings me to the most central character in the match for understanding fear of a sport, and that is Inarizaki's captain, Kita. Kita's philosophy of process over results is a great framing tool in a match like this, and literally redefines basically everything that came before it in the series, as well as paving a path for what types of themes will be explored in the future. Kita argues that you should never be fearful of what will come at you in a match of volleyball, because you should have an understanding of your skills and the limits of your capabilities. And we see that play out throughout the match. At first, Tanaka and Nishinoya hit a wall of fear, but by doing the things that they've practiced for hours, they are able to overcome that fear. Kita does not fear losing, because he understands that losing is just an outcome, but if you put in the work, then you will be in a position to win. Throughout the series, all of Karasuno has respected the process. Everyone tries their hardest and puts in hours of extra work. But for someone like Hinata and Kageyama, they're still focused on results, to stay on the court. We have seen our characters trust the process in the entire series, but they are still dead focused on using the process to make results for them. And in this match, it is the process that leads them to winning. Karasuno fell in love with the freak quick, and it took them to amazing heights, but they couldn't solely rely on it to win. Aoba Josai and Oikawa were able to beat it. So Hinata and Kageyama worked to perfect it, to understand when it could fail and try to overcome that. And in the end, they were able to stop the team that copied that move. Together, they were able to overcome the fear of Inarizaki and block the freak quick. Because of their process in understanding the limitations of the freak quick, they knew how to stop what used to be an ultimate weapon. The entire team used what they had learned in the first 3 seasons to help them overcome the fear of this powerhouse school. The terror that comes with this match is through fear. Fear that you will not be able to stay on the court. Fear that all of the tedious hours of work you have put in won't mount to any real results. Fear that what you care about so much will slip through your grasp. That is where the true terror of this match comes from. And the frightening aspects of Karasuno versus Inarizaki being played up by the amazing production that Mappa provides, as well as the great character growth that has been started since the first season. And the fear in this match is real. It lives in our lives every single day. Every day we go through a process. And that process is a big part of defining who we are as people. It may be going to school or work each and every day, or it could be perfecting your athletic ability to pull 120% of your potential out in any given moment. It could even be making videos for people on the internet. What is important is the process of doing these things, getting up and putting the work in every day, and understanding that the results will always be varied, but your process never will be. And to be honest, that can be kind of a terrifying thought at first. A big mountain that just feels too high to climb. But after a short period of time, that daunting challenge will be turned into a hunger and excitement for more. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. The Inarizaki match just gets better and better the more I think about it, and I'm very much ready for the 5th season of Haikyuu to already be out, so I can't wait for that and when that's announced. So let me know what you thought of the video. Where does this rank? What do you think of this match? Did you find it as frightening as I did? I really feel that the core of that match is fear, and make sure that, if you enjoy my work, check out my Patreon down below. Any kind of support really helps this channel, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Hopefully I will see you in the next one.